Nick, you manage over $580 billion in assets over at BlackRock, primarily retirement assets. So how are you dealing with all the volatility in the market right now?
The way that we set up the target date funds that I look after, called LifePath, is they're built on a prospect that we call grow, protect, spend. So what we're really worried about is the volatility for our near-dated investors, and those portfolios are automatically built to be more conservative. So when we see these types of drawdowns, which does happen more often than a lot of us would like to admit, we don't want to see a lot of our investors making changes to the portfolios because we're trying to keep them in there for the long horizon.
And you recently published a survey about how retirees are dealing with the spike in volatility. So how freaked out are they?
So what the survey showed is that about 80% of investors didn't do anything in April. About 10% went to cash or traded out of more growth assets, and about 10% went into the market further and bought more assets. So overall, while we don't want that 10% to trade out, because most of these investors, even retirees, have a 20+ year time horizon, we did see that 90% of the investors either bought more or just stayed the course, which is what we'd want to see.
20+ years in retirement, I'm going to go forever. I'm living forever, 30, 40, 50 years. Can you talk about longevity risk?
Sure. Longevity risk is a big risk, and it's a risk that's becoming more impactful. So just to put this in perspective, a 65-year-old in the United States has about a 20-year life expectancy. So when we save for retirement, we're saving for at least 20 years is how we have to think about it. So what we tell our investors is really to look at this in three ways. First of all, what are your liquid assets? So how much can you spend from your liquid assets? How to optimize Social Security. And the goal here is to always work longer if you can, and then defer Social Security for a year. And then the third one is if you can have access to an institutional insurance type product, something that we have called LifePath Paycheck, which insurance is embedded in that product, that will help you with longevity. And the rule that we try to say is we want individuals to have a baseline of guaranteed income in retirement in addition to just Social Security.
You rolled out that LifePath Paycheck product last year. So after 12 months or so, what have the results told you? Because a lot of people are moving towards guaranteed income,
right,
and buffered ETFs, et cetera. So what are people saying about it after a year?
So we've raised about $20 billion in the product. There's 7 clients. These are large clients. If you figure about $20 billion across 7 clients. So it's been very popular. We've been able to do what we've said, which is track a traditional target date index fund on the accumulation. So there's not a direct charge for the new product. And then in retirement, we're able to dramatically improve retirement outcomes. So there's been a huge demand for this. And we've talked about longevity. We've talked about adding guaranteed income. I think the point that people are looking for in retirement is certainty. Most people don't say, I want longevity in retirement. What they're looking for is that paycheck again. They're looking for that certainty, and that's what we've been able to provide.
And then finally, all right, you just talked about certainty, we talked about longevity, we talked about volatility. So what's the next big challenge? What's the frontier when it comes to retirement investing?
If you think about what we've done in LifePath, is we've had a very rigorous research agenda. The next part of the research agenda is we're looking at private markets. So this would be private credit, private equity, infrastructure, those types of vehicles. But we're not doing that as just a standalone. The next frontier is turning these defined contribution plans in more to hybrid plans. So getting access to things that we've seen in the defined benefit plans, like guaranteed income, that's LifePath Paycheck. Well, now why aren't individual investors able to access things like private markets? So it's not private markets specifically, but think of your defined contribution plan or your target date fund being able to access the full suite of institutional products. That's the next frontier.
All right, well, thanks a lot for coming on and talking about it.
Thank you.